Welcome in on this Wednesday evening. Let's get right to it. This is one of the major questions in 49ers fandom and 49ers media on the internet right now. Why aren't the 49ers targeting George Kittle as often as they did before? I mean, this was a guy that was setting receiving records for tight ends, right, in 2018. Obviously, caught his share of passes in 2019, had an absolute tear in 2020, and then another one in 2021. But for some reason, and the reason is probably plentiful, we're going to talk about it today. He had only 2 catches for 24 yards against the Rams, and that was coming off a game in which he wasn't all too heavily utilized in the past game against the Denver Broncos. Anyway, why don't we watch what the 49ers would like to see as time goes on with George Kittle. This was the first completion between Jimmy Garoppolo and George Kittle in the game against LA. This is worth replaying. Look at the time of release right here. When Jimmy releases, you'll see George Kittle at the top left corner of your screen. That's Ernest Jones, Rams linebacker. Kittle has not yet cleared Ernest Jones to the inside, and this ball's already in the air. So as you can see, there is a lot of trust involved in this delivery from Jimmy Garoppolo. He has to deliver this one surgically into the spot where Kittle will be. Throwing him open, Kittle does his job and gets open. So first lessons first, there's obviously a lot of choreography that goes into these connections, especially against the defense that is good, like the Rams defense. And this was Kittle's first catch of the game against the Rams. Speaking of what Kyle Shanahan said about this today, I'm going to read you his full quote, but we'll put this down on the screen. But Kyle Shanahan was asked about this very issue today. George Kittle, why is he not getting targeted as much? And this was his answer. The more Kittle is out there and healthy, the more he practices, the more he can get back into the routine. I think that stuff will take care of itself. The plays that went to him, I thought he did a good job in the game. Kittle affects the game in so many ways, the run and the pass. We definitely want to get him the ball more, but it's something we're not concerned about. We think it'll take care of itself as we get going. That's the operative line. We think it'll take care of itself as we get going. So Shanahan mentioned a couple interesting things. He said that Kittle impacts the games in so many ways, even when he's not catching the ball. Well, what are those ways? Well, first, we need to consider the 49ers-Rams game plan. And this is going to turn into a larger discussion about Jimmy Garoppolo and all these complaints about receivers that he might not have looked at or thrown to. Anytime you're analyzing one of these games, you cannot pretend that it is Madden. This is not Madden on rookie mode. The 49ers, Shanahan, Garoppolo, everybody's operating within a specific offensive game plan that they have built over the course of the week that must satisfy multiple interests. And the game plan against the Rams had to satisfy 2 primary interests. One was protecting the 49ers from the Rams defense, which terrorized them up front in the NFC Championship game, namely Aaron Donald, and B, doing so without their starting left tackle, Trent Williams, who's currently out with a high ankle sprain. So the 49ers' overarching strategy offensively in this game against the Rams was to get the ball out quickly. And that means that sometimes you're not going to get to your second, third, fourth read. That means first read needs to be good. Garoppolo needs to get to the first read, and he did. The 49ers won the game. Jimmy Garoppolo was efficient. It was about quick release, 2.44 seconds average time from snap to release for Jimmy Garoppolo. Only 2 QBs, including Tom Brady, were faster this weekend, and it was about hitting the early read. And, this applies to a ton of stuff. This applies to, why didn't he throw to this guy here? But it also applies to why didn't he throw to George Kittle in a lot of situations? Because the first read often was not George Kittle. On top of that, Kittle does have big blocking responsibilities for the 49ers, especially in their game plan for the Rams. Because the 49ers are trying to augment their blocking units, they use George Kittle as a pass protector a lot, and they use him, obviously, as a run protector a lot. We're going to use a couple of, I think, really famous examples in this game, examples that have already been out there around the highlight reels several times. First, this one. This is a pass blocking play for George Kittle. This one is probably not as famous, but it has been the subject of debate. This is an incompletion from Jimmy Garoppolo to Charlie Werner. And I have some criticism for the play call here as well, and we'll get into it in a second. But you'll see Kittle, he's lined up on the near side, near the bottom of the screen. Don't watch the pass on this first go-round. We'll play it again. We could see the pass after that. But notice that Kittle's going to stay in, and he's going to help Mike McGlinchey right there with a double team, bottom of your screen, right above my head. He's going to help Mike McGlinchey with a pass block. Kittle's been doing a lot of this here over his first couple of weeks, and he does a ton of this every single time that the 49ers play the Rams. Then Garoppolo throws to Charlie Warner, who actually had sprung out on a pass pattern, but obviously it is incomplete. Now, we can go on a slight tangent here because I know this is of interest to some people. This pass obviously did not hit the mark, and I asked Charlie Warner about it today. And, it was interesting to me because you will notice here that Warner initially breaks. You'll see here. Warner initially had broken with his head in. He had turned his head in, and then he realized the Garoppolo had thrown to his outside shoulder and looked out. The correction from Warner came too late, and then he was unable to lunge for the football. So, the natural question is, well, whose fault is this? Was Warner supposed to be looking in, or was he supposed to be looking out? Because as you can tell, at this point in the freeze frame, the ball is already in the air. Warner is looking in, but that ball's trajectory is going to be to his outside shoulder. So he has to flip around and look out. And once he looks out, that ball just glances off his hand. So I asked Charlie about it, because I thought this might be Jimmy Garoppolo's fault. It seems because Warner is open. I mean, he springs open past the linebacker. But what Charlie told me is that in a play like this, he had beaten the linebacker in such a way that there is, from the vantage point of the quarterback right here, you can see Jimmy Garoppolo back here after he released the throw. Nice pocket from the 49ers there. From the vantage point of the quarterback, it's tough to tell which leverage side that linebacker is on. So you could see how he's standing right in between Garoppolo and Warner. So there's some confusion. It is a chaotic sport. There's a little bit of confusion as to which side that throw should be on. And this is a rapport thing. This is absolutely a rapport thing. It turns out that Warner, based on where he thought he was open, thought that throw was going to come over his inside shoulder. Garoppolo, for whatever reason, I actually haven't asked him about this play yet. Maybe we'll have a chance to ask him about it tomorrow. Believed from his angle, where this linebacker's at, he thought that outside shoulder would be the best approach. Obviously, they weren't on the same page, and it was incomplete. Warner chalked it up today by saying that's football. This is a chaotic sport. That's football. That's something that happens when you're on a football field. So there's a lot of, attempts on social media to just throw rocks, throw blame in one direction or the other. That answer probably won't be acceptable to a lot of people. But if you want to fairly analyze these games, that answer has to be acceptable to you. Sometimes in the chaos of battle on a football field with helmets and pads flying around, you get the shoulder wrong, right? The two guys who need to be connecting for the pass aren't in lockstep. And that's, a larger kind of thing that we need to talk about for the 49ers. Garoppolo needs to play more games with this offense because he didn't do training camp with them. He started for the first time against Denver. The 49ers will need more time to iron out little cohesive things like that, such as throwing to the wrong shoulder to Charlie Warner on that play, because he was open and the 49ers did miss an opportunity. That being said, we were talking about George Kittle. And on this play, George Kittle pass protected. You can see him here, bottom of the screen. He's pass protecting alongside Mike McGlinchey. Maybe we could fast forward to the end zone copy. You see Kittle on the left side, pretty much above my head again. He's going to help in pass protection. As soon as this is snapped, takes on the defensive end, helps McGlinchey. And by the way, they get a clean pocket for Jimmy Garoppolo. This is what you want. Then all you need is Jimmy to hit the right shoulder. Now, my criticism of that particular play call is, Kittle is a great, great receiver. We know this. I mean, for his first couple of years in the NFL, he had top wide receiver-like efficiency. He'd rival Julio Jones in receiver efficiency as a tight end. We all know that Charlie Warner can also block. We saw him execute the wham block on the Jeff Wilson touchdown against Greg Gaines. But, since we know that George Kittle runs a 4.5 and is such a deadly receiver, why not have him run the pass pattern if you really want to get him involved in the offense? And That, I think, is the more fair criticism of Kyle Shanahan's usage of George Kittle. Well, yeah, you might need a tight end back to pass protect to help out a sketchy tackle situation against the pass rush like the Rams. But if you need to do that, why not use Charlie Werner? And I get it. The answer is going to be, well, George Kittle's a better pass protector. But George Kittle's also a better receiver. And I think that as this season goes along, the 49ers need to utilize George Kittle more in receiving situations than in pass protecting situations. Now, he also has big run blocking responsibilities. So we'll take the most famous play from this game, the Deebo Samuel touchdown, and take a look at what George Kittle's doing from a run blocking perspective. I'll let this play in its entirety and all of its glory first, so you can watch Jalen Ramsey take an embarrassing attempt at an open field tackle, and you can see Deebo Samuel score. All right, let's go back. Let's see where George Kittle is. Near side of your screen. Kittle sees that ball is going to Deebo Samuel. As soon as Deebo catches this football, you see George right here, right under the SF logo. He's in a dead sprint. He's taken off toward Deebo Samuel to help as a blocker. So George Kittle is impacting the game here, even though he didn't get the football. And I think that's really, really important to note. Again, this was a game plan of quick reads. So the 49ers needed to get the ball quickly out of the pocket, out of Jimmy Garoppolo's hand. Average of 2.44 seconds, which was excellent. On this particular third down, the very quick read is to Deebo Samuel, makes the catch on that higher football. We're going to have to check with Jimmy Garoppolo to see if that was intentional, but it's a good thing he did throw it a bit higher. Otherwise, it would have been a pick six, and Deebo Samuel houses it thanks to some nice blocking from George Kittle. So you see here motion from Kittle. He's now in the slot there on the left of your screen, right above my head. Kittle was going to be a secondary read on the play. Doesn't get the football, but at this point, Deebo has the ball after the nice catch. George is sprinting over to help. And George, you can see Kyle Juszczyk helping. You can see George with a wipeout block right there. Bottom right, George Kittle took out a defender. Because he took out the defender, Deebo just has to beat Jalen Ramsey. Jalen Ramsey has no interest in tackling Deebo Samuel. It is a touchdown. So Kittle has blocking responsibilities outside of catching the football. And that is very, very important to note. But, I mean, this might come across as a shocker given the reactionary nature of social media, and they're like, oh, what's wrong with Kittle? Why is he not getting, any targets? Well, rapport takes time. To be the first guy in that progression takes time. To get to the level that the 49ers were at on a play like this absolutely takes time. And this was the second play of the second half. So Shanahan wasn't going to the swell immediately. The 49ers need to get George Kittle reintegrated into the offense. It says something about our current state of discourse that people just can't compute, or they don't find it acceptable, that Jimmy Garoppolo maybe needed a game, right? A full game against Denver to knock some of the rust off, that George Kittle might need more than a game, maybe more than two, to knock some of the receiving rust off. And when you talk about the sport of football, which is organized chaos, when you're really trying to make a lot of special, minute, intricate details happen within the context of a lot of very large and fast men flying around. Well, when you're trying to, thread that needle, when you're trying to create that kind of precision, maybe, just maybe, it might take a little while. It might take some practice time. It may take some game time for a connection such as the one between Jimmy Garoppolo and George Kittle to properly materialize. So that's all extremely, extremely important background information to emphasize with Kittle. And, there's going to be a lot of off-the-wall theories about why he's not getting the football. I think those are the simplest ones. Now, there might be one that's even simpler, and it's this right here. George Kittle is no longer the 49ers' only premier receiving weapon. He was in 2017. He was in 2018, certainly that year. And to an extent, he was in 2019. The 49ers traded for Emmanuel Sanders around midseason. But for the first part of that year, George Kittle was not only their best blocking tight end, he was wide receiver one. Again, his efficiency as a wide receiver rivaled that of Julio Jones. It was at the top of the very league, the yards per route run, if you went there on PFF. This was staggering stuff that we had never seen from a tight end before. But now you have other guys to give the football to. We saw Deebo Samuel on that catch and run touchdown. That was spectacular. We saw a lot of Jawan Jennings earlier on in this game. He's not a premier weapon, but boy, he's a big third down weapon for the 49ers. They had Brandon Ayuk. They go to players like Kyle Juszczyk, who had a big catch in this game in the second half. I mean, we could go through this list, and it's not a short one, right? The 49ers have weapons offensively, and Kittle's not the only one. So as far as reintegration to the offense goes after a groin injury, and somebody asked me, is he still hurt? Well, he's not hurt per se, but it takes a while to get back up into speed and to rhythm. And it's harder to get into that rhythm quickly when there's so many other weapons in the offense. This is just standard kind of logical stuff. So as Shanahan said, the 49ers think this is going to take care of itself as we get going. I think that's the most likely case in this issue for George Kittle. Finally, don't forget that the 49ers and Garoppolo did target George Kittle in a huge spot. I can't even underestimate I can't overstate how huge this was. Let's put this and add it to the stream. This is a video. I believe Brad from the SF Niners actually goes to these games, sits in the stands, and he gets these cool angles of these plays. So he got an excellent angle of the Jimmy Garoppolo throw to George Kittle in the back of the end zone. So why don't we just watch this from the angle of the stands? Now, this is a huge third down. Fourth quarter, what a throw. And what a catch, too, from George Kittle. I mean, he's making a blind catch in a way. The only problem was that he didn't get his second foot fully in bounds. But Garoppolo, again, throws George Kittle open. That's Ernest Jones, the linebacker, 53. Kittle is working against the safety, 4. You see there running along the back line. Ernest Jones has the near side zone. Garoppolo is going to throw Kittle open through both of them. Touchdown. And, that's George Kittle's speed. That's a lot of good stuff happening because the 49ers trust George Kittle in that situation. How different would the narrative be about George Kittle if the 49ers, if he just kept his second foot fully in bounds? Nobody would be talking about the 49ers not targeting George Kittle, but that was literally them targeting him in one of the biggest spots of the game against the Rams. And sometimes it doesn't work out. Sometimes sensational throw, sensational route means that it doesn't work out because 2 inches of your foot are out of bounds. And it's too bad. But that shouldn't change the whole narrative, right? Narratives are so reactionary. It shouldn't change the whole narrative. The 49ers actually did target George Kittle. No, they didn't target him as often as they used to, but you can tell that they're ramping up. And again, they have said, Shanahan said this, we think that it will take care of itself as we get going. So those are the answers. All right, how about some bonus tape today before I get to some questions? This is today's bonus tape. This is Jimmy Garoppolo. That's the wrong one. We're going to go to this is the bonus tape. That's Jimmy Garoppolo hitting George Kittle. This is 3rd and 3 ahead of the Debo touchdown. Jimmy Garoppolo, first down, runs for it. How about that little ball spin right there? Very nice. Looks like he'd been practicing that. I don't see quarterbacks do it very often, especially pocket quarterbacks, but Jimmy loves spinning that football just like a wideout. So that's the bonus video for today. Anyway, let's get to some of your questions. By the way, 49ers offseason report card is in. I wrote that today for The Athletic, so you can check this sucker out right here. I'm going to copy and paste the link into the comment section so you can subscribe and check it out. And let me answer some questions. I gave grades this morning, so that's a separate video. So you can like the channel, like the video, subscribe to the channel, check out the 49ers quarter grades. It's a little report card style thing for the 49ers. Mike, Ayuk is a guy I'm hoping eats soon. Guy has been open a ton. Yeah, and, I think that, we talk about Ayuk being open a ton, but he wasn't open all too often against Denver. Patrick Surtain, the second, really did a good job. He was blanketing Brandon Ayuk. I thought Ayuk did a much better job with separation in this Denver game. Now, a lot of people, I guess I could go back to this. So a lot of people seem very, very up in arms about Ayuk not getting the football on this play right here. Because if we rewind, we're going to see that Ayuk shakes Jalen Ramsey out of his pants. Ayuk is on the far side, right side. I just circled him. Just watch Ayuk on this play. Ramsey, no chance. Ayuk is open. But as you can tell, Garoppolo is looking for read number 1. Read number 1, Kittle crossing over the back of the end zone. And 2, even if you do go to Ayuk right here, look where Aaron Donald is. If you like passes getting batted down by Aaron Donald, you throw to Brandon Ayuk. If you like open throwing lanes, you drop a dime to George Kittle. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for the 49ers. But with this pass rushing action, it looks like a little bit of game action, actually. Aaron Donald crossing over from inside to outside. I mean, this is Ayuk coming out of the break. Donald is already here. Donald could get his arms in the way of this pass. And, the 49ers are playing the Carolina Panthers this week. Baker Mayfield leads the league with 9 batted passes. There's a reason why some quarterbacks have a lot of passes batted down, because they're throwing into crowded lanes. Jimmy Garoppolo decides not to throw into a crowded lane with Aaron Donald, who's one of the best in football on this play. And instead, he throws what was almost a touchdown to George Kittle. So that's why Ayuk didn't get the ball there. But yes, point taken. Ayuk is gaining separation against these cornerbacks. He did a much better job this past week than he did against Patrick Surtain. And I guarantee you, if Ayuk keeps on getting open and the 49ers keep on gelling offensively, he's also going to become a more pronounced part of the offensive framework. The thing about Kyle Shanahan's offense, though, especially in these games where they're trying to neutralize opposing pass rushes, it's about quick release, early read. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. I mean, that should be something that's celebrated. The fact that Garoppolo was 2.44 seconds snap to release. There's a reason why the Rams took 7 sacks from the 49ers, 7 49ers sacks against the Rams, 36 49ers pressures against the Rams. It didn't work that way for LA against the 49ers offense. 5 pressures as a team compared to 36 for the 49ers, and no sacks for the Rams. Why, you might ask? Well, A, the 49ers did a good job with their blocking assignments, but B, Jimmy Garoppolo actually got rid of the football, and he developed and executed the cohesive game plan with Kyle Shanahan to get the ball out quickly. So all of these ball distribution concerns, unless you're considering them within the context of 2.44 seconds and what the 49ers were actually trying to do, and that is avoid negative plays in this game, and it worked for them. Unless you're doing that, then it's empty criticism, right? So this I can't highlight enough at the bottom of the screen, but I do think that Ayuk and Kittle are going to get more action here moving forward for the 49ers. Kate Dubsville asks, Micah Parsons is currently the clear betting favorite for Defensive Player of the Year. Why doesn't Bosa get more attention and love? Well, maybe we need to make more videos about Nick Bosa. Those seem to be getting a lot of views these days. So guess what? I have an article coming out on Nick Bosa and Baker Mayfield tomorrow morning. Maybe that will help Nick Bosa's Defensive Player of the Year push. Akshay wants to see Mason and Mack get some runs. I'm wondering if Mason gets some run as kick returner, if Ray McLeod can't hang on to the football. Do you guys have any questions? Go ahead and post them here. Do I think that Jalen Moore will work okay at left tackle? I'm not sure. He's got a big test this weekend in Brian Burns. Nick Bosa is ranked 1st in pressures. Brian Burns is ranked 4th in pressures this season. So 2 top 5 edge rushers this year going at it. Brian Burns, same draft class, same first round as Nick Bosa, 2019. He's a handful, 6'5", 250, long, fast, explosive, multiple moves. Lines up on both sides. So he's going to be working against Jalen Moore in this game for at least part of it. And it's going to be really important for Moore to at least stymie him partially, right? You might not fully stop this guy, but you have to slow him down. And then, Shanahan and Garoppolo can help. They helped against the Rams. Again, 2.44 seconds helped the backup tackle situation. That's a quick snap to release time. Receivers getting quick separation help the 49ers. You're going to have to help your 3rd string left tackle in a similar fashion this weekend. With how good Gibson has started the season, do the 49ers expect Jimmy to come in and start straight away? I think they can afford to ease Jimmy Ward in. If he is 100% ready to go and practice this week, then sure, you start him. But you can go with 3 safety sets, and the 49ers have done this before. They did it last year to get Hufanga involved, and I think you could do the same thing to get Jimmy Ward reintegrated into this offense, even with Tashaun Gibson playing good football for this team. All right, I'm going to scroll down. You guys got good questions. Can I evaluate Drake Jackson so far? Yeah, I mean, I could do a separate video on this. It's probably something that deserves a second video. Super bendy, right? He's not the king of explosiveness like D Ford was. He's plenty explosive, but he's not going to be at the top of any list. He's got a lot of bend, and he uses those long arms and that bend to get to the passer. I think the pressure rate has gone up over time for Drake Jackson. The 49ers have 3 pass rushers who are in the top 25 in pressures this year. Jackson is not one of them, but there's a chance he cracks the top 40 this year. Obviously, they've got Bosa, they've got Ebukam, they got Charles Omenihu. They could get a 4th edge rusher in that mix. Just shows you how deep this defensive line is. But I think that the 49ers have been satisfied with the progress that Drake Jackson has been making so far. Did McVay actually call a QB sneak, or was it a botched punt? It wasn't a botched punt, and I do think he actually called it. Now, I can actually open this because I have this video at the ready for you. So give me a second here. Somebody asked me this question today. So let's watch here. This is 2nd down and 3. The people thought this was really weird. I see no sign of a fumbled snap. Oh, there's a typo. They're like, here, let's put the question. Yeah, here. We fixed your question. Did McVay call a QB sneak, or was it a botched snap? It looked weird and seemed very unlike McVay. Yes, I agree. And I thought, well, the game's over if they're this afraid of the 49ers pass rush. It's 2nd and 3. Does anybody see a fumbled snap there? I don't see it. And also, I see Matt Stafford very committed to the quarterback sneak from the second that this ball is snapped. There's no hesitation for Matt Stafford. He plows forward. We're going to see it from the reverse angle here. There is zero hesitation from Matt Stafford. This looks like a sneak all the way. Unless his instincts are so lightning quick that he bobbled it and then decided to just run forward. I think this is supposed to be a surprise sneak on 2nd and 3, and it didn't work. And the 49ers, I think the Rams ended up picking up that 1st down, moving down the field. But I think at this point, the 49ers had gotten into the Rams' heads. So, yeah, I think he was all in on the sneak. And I'm going to post this on Twitter here in a second as soon as I'm done with this video, because it's a good question. It seemed out of character. I didn't see a fumble at the time, and I definitely don't see a fumble here on the replay. Corey Monroe said he tried to catch the D napping. It's one of those things, though, you only try to do when you're desperate, when that pass rush is completely dominating you. And that's what was happening for the 49ers against the Rams. One thing, when we talk about appreciating the quick release game, if it were easy to execute the quick release game, if it were easy to limit the other team to no sacks and 5 pressures, the Rams would have done it too. Matt Stafford would have done it too. Instead, Stafford was pressured 36 times and sacked 7 times, right? The 49ers were able to choke off the quick game. That's how good the coverage was on the back end for the 49ers. So the short quick game is not easy to get to. In a way, the Rams, did that to the 49ers in the NFC Championship game. Garoppolo was at 2.3 seconds in Week 10 last year, 2.4 in Week 18, back to 2.4 here in Week 4. But last NFC Championship game, he was at 3.2. And it's because the Rams played tiger coverage, cut off the 49ers short game, and, made him work. I want to know what Stafford's snap to release in this game was. I'm going to look that up, and we'll talk about it in a later video. But, all of this stuff is not gimme stuff. A lot of people act like some of these offensive strategies, throwing to George Kittle, throwing to Brandon Ayuk, is as simple as hitting a button on a video game controller. And it's not that simple. It all has to happen with the context of an offense and a pass rush, right? And that offense has to combat the pass rush, because if you start taking negative plays, you detonate your game plan. And one of the big reasons why the 49ers won this game is because they didn't take a lot of negative plays. Will the refs ever call holding against Bosa? Well, I have a piece coming out about this tomorrow. Bosa was, he's funny. And today he said he complained to the refs once, and he told the ref, he tackled me. And the ref responded, he's allowed to do that. And Bosa was like, I don't think he heard me right. I'm pretty sure guys aren't allowed to tackle me. The thing is, it seems like he's been getting tackled quite a bit. And I mean, Joey blew up in a press conference last year, calling the refs blind. Nick hasn't gone quite that far. Today might have been the furthest that Nick has gone as far as talking about complaining about the refs. And he later said he thinks they've been okay this year. But the rules are definitely dictated in favor of the offense in the NFL. Well, it turned out that it wasn't the best time to try because he only got like 2 yards. I don't even think that Stafford got the first down. It was 2nd and 3, and he didn't get it. So the thing is, the thing about the Rams in this game, they didn't have a single play over 20 yards. They were unable to do anything explosive, and you're going to have to do something explosive to beat these 49ers at some point, right? And every single play that you waste by doing like a sneak on 2nd and 3, you take away a chance to burn the 49ers downfield. That's why I don't think it was the most efficient play from the Rams, that quarterback sneak. Kevin Givens, the next DJ Jones. He's quick. He's got leverage. He's not as big as DJ Jones, but that swim move against 62 was really nice. Set up a tackle for loss. Thanks, Eric. I appreciate you. I'm not going to be live too much longer. I want to let this video have some chance to breathe. Animal Fries says, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that like button on the video. It helps Mr. Lombardi out a lot. Appreciate you, man. Thank you. It is going to be interesting to see the Cowboys versus the Rams offensive line. That Rams offensive line is a mess right now. I mean, the center position, they're down to 3rd string. Boom really struggles at left tackle. One thing to note is the Rams are a lot worse than they were last year. Now, it's going to be interesting to see the 49ers play the Carolina offensive line. Because remember, the 49ers, they racked up a ton of sacks, I think 6, against the Panthers in 2019. Now, that's a different Panthers team, but the right tackle is the same, Taylor Moton. And he actually had a decent game. That was the game where Nick Bosa had the interception, took it back 46 yards, one of the epic plays of that 2019 Super Bowl run. Bosa had 3 sacks in that game. I mean, Bosa really announced his arrival in that game. Bosa was really, really good. So this is going to be a hybrid of that game in 2019 and the game against the Browns in 2019, a few weeks earlier, because Baker Mayfield is now the quarterback of the Carolina Panthers. So you talk about the Nick Bosa flag plant, right? In vengeance for the Baker Mayfield flag plant, taunting Baker Mayfield in, at the bottom of the pile. I mean, all that stuff. That's what my article tomorrow is about. So tune in for that. Nick Bosa, Baker Mayfield, all that good stuff. How did I start covering the 49ers? I started in 2017 with a cold email. Athletic brought me in. They said, hey, I had just gotten laid off by ESPN. I was a college football reporter. I got laid off with a ton of other people. Hundreds of other people in spring of 2017. Athletic was getting started in August of 2017 in the Bay Area. They just said, hey, go out there, cover the team. We'll pay you by article. You don't have a contract. And I found out that the Athletic was offering me to join, the staff full-time on the roster cutdown day. So I was essentially trying out for a full-time job at 49ers training camp during Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch's first training camp while the team was. And the symmetry there, I thought, was pretty cool that year. So I've been covering the 49ers ever since then. It came aboard the same year that Shanahan and Lynch showed up. Yeah, I was covering Stanford in the Pac-12 for ESPN prior to this, from 2014 to 2017. Before that, covered Stanford kind of as a student reporter from 2007 to 2010, 11, around then. And then I worked for Scout.com covering Stanford football. So the 49ers have been since 2017. With the 49ers losses both being on the road, is there a concentration execution issue? I don't think there's a concentration issue. There's definitely an execution issue when they lose. They're just, but I mean, again, the first loss was against the Chicago Bears in a monsoon. Trey Lance was starting, so that's not going to be as indicative of what we're going to see moving forward since Lance isn't playing anymore this year. So we can almost toss that one out the window as far as execution goes. And then there was poor execution in Denver. But it was also Jimmy Garoppolo's first game. And I don't know why it has become controversial to point out that players might need time to work into the flow of a system. I mean, why else would they have training camp if it wasn't needed? So, yes, there's been an execution issue. I don't think it's a concentration issue. And I think that the 49ers are moving in the right direction offensively after this past week. It certainly got better from week 3 to week 4. You will only see the name on that number 17 jersey behind me if the 49ers win the Super Bowl. That's the rules. Rules are rules. There's always concern with Kinlaw's knee. I mean, because this has been an issue for him ever since he came into the league. But I didn't see him in the locker room today. He didn't practice today. I'll update you on that when we do have a chance on it. Appreciate it. I appreciate everybody who has followed me throughout the years. Thanks, guys. All right. Speaking of that, if you follow me, make sure that you follow me everywhere, including on Twitter. Make sure you subscribe to The Athletic. And thanks for joining the show today. It was a fun one on Wednesday night. I'll talk to everybody soon. Everybody hit that sub button, hit that like button. More content's rolling your way, including a big Nick Bosa, Baker Mayfield article and video tomorrow morning. Everybody take care. Have a great Wednesday night.